Welcome to the Child Free Wealth Podcast, hosted by Bree and Dr. J, Certified Financial Planner. Here we discuss life and finances as it relates to being child-free. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult your advisor before implementing any ideas heard on this podcast. Hey, Child Free Wealth listeners, today's episode is going to be a little bit different. This is a two-part episode where we're talking about FIRE and FILE, so financial independence, retire early, and financial independence, live early. And then we're going to go ahead and talk about how do you access your money before age 59 and a half. When we recorded these episodes initially, we did it with the intention of they were going to be on 2 separate weeks. And then our schedule changed a little bit, and now they are on 1 week. And so the first episode you're going to hear is going to be covering that FIRE and FILE. And then the next episode is how can you go ahead and do that when a lot of your money is in retirement accounts and you're not 59 and a half yet, because that's such a topic that we see so often from people that has them held back and limiting themselves from actually going ahead and leaving their career. So let's dive in.
So clients will come to us and say, when can I retire? And my first question is, do you want to retire? And then they give me that confused dog look, huh? What? It's interesting because you now have that discussion well, what do you care about? What matters to you? I mean, what do you want to do when you grow up? What's your second half of life look like? And what I find is a lot of child-free folks don't want the standard retirement. Instead of following FIRE, financial independence, retire early, which if you think about that as an on-off switch, that's an on-off switch, I'm not working again. They're following more what's called FILE, financial independence, live early, which is more like a dimmer switch of work over time. And it's interesting because when you give people this option, they go, ooh, I kind of like that. But it starts changing the way they look at their financial planning, the way they look at their life, the way they look at their job. And all of a sudden they go, oh, well, then I don't hate my job as much. I want to do something different. I want to do an encore career. I want to whatever else it is, rather than just, I want to work 25 years, retire and get the watch. And this is something that child-free folks are embracing. And I think it's specific to child-free folks, because we have choices and we can do retirement different. Bree, have you seen this FILE versus FIRE?
I have seen it a lot. And especially lately, I've seen a lot more people asking about it when they come to a checkup saying, can I file? When can I file? How do I do this? So I've seen it quite a bit. And I think people often view it as, I have to be a certain age before you can do it. That's not true. It's really not age. It's more of where you're at in your financial life. And is it something that's feasible for you?
It's part of a plan. So, Bree, do you see yourself as more of kind of a FILE or FIRE person? Where's your life fit?
I go back and forth because I have such a full and beautiful life. And there are so many things that I do that I can just do so many things and be fully retired. But I also don't know that would be realistic for me. It just really depends on the day because I'm constantly volunteering or doing other things. So I struggle with that one. Hey, Child Free Wealth listeners, it's Bree. I highly encourage you to schedule a Child Free Wealth checkup. During this time, you're going to get a couple of forms to fill out that include your life and financial plan. We'll review them, and then we're going to have a meeting and go through them with you. We're going to give you some advice and things to work on and talk through things to make your finances simpler so your life can be amazing. You can schedule yours by going to our website, childfreewealth.com, and clicking the Schedule Now button.
Yeah, and I mean, I do too, to an extent. I mean, the challenge for me, so anyone who's listening knows, I want to get on a boat, travel the world. That's kind of my future. That's what I want my retirement to look like. I don't know how you do long-term care on the boat. Maybe, you pay for staff to come on the boat. I don't know. But that's what I want to do. What's that?
That'd be cool.
Yeah, there's a way. But, I've been thinking a lot about it and I need something to kind of work with it. And one of my clients called it a mental chew toy. And I really love this term, kind of like something to chew on. So your brain's thinking through things and working. Now, do I really need to make more money at it? I don't. That's a different question. But I'm probably going to do some work the rest of my life. So if that's the case, retirement is not the classic goal. I think the challenge is so much of financial planning is wrapped around, you save, retirement, retire and go. And one of the challenges I will give the FIRE community, and I love what they're doing on a financial education standpoint, literacy. They're actually helping folks on that. They're helping people get invested. I'm with that. The challenge is people can go too far in the FIRE community where like they're making their own soap and, living on ramen noodles and, essentially not spending any money whatsoever. So they retire earlier. So then the question becomes, once you retire early, what do you do? And it becomes that moment of like the dog that caught the car and like, what do I want my life to look like? And for many FIRE folks, what I find is they've been so good at scrimping and saving that they never kind of look back and go, is this still the goal I want to go on? I mean, we did a series of episodes with Andy and Libby, and they're the perfect example of having this debate. And I recently recorded a review with them about 6 months later. And they have this FIRE number stuck in their head. I got to hit this number. I got to hit this number. I got to hit this number. We worked through this file concept. They're now both kind of doing a little side business, doing their thing. They got to do it years earlier, and they're so much happier. And it's not all about hitting the number.
Yeah. And having that conversation with people can be incredibly helpful because many times when we talk about retirement, we're talking about, okay, you're working and then you're not making money anymore. But if you still want to do some things and still enjoy things, I just got an email from somebody this morning. They've been retired less than a week and they go, I would like to do some things. How do I do this? Please help. We're going to be working on that. Okay, sure. Absolutely. People are wanting to do things, wanting to be engaged. I'm less concerned when I'm talking to clients about getting to that point and hitting retirement and making sure they're retired, and more concerned about how are you actually going to spend your time? What are you going to do? Are you going to enjoy it? Because there are a lot of different things people can do, but many times we forget about that and we don't think about it. I've seen people who say, I'm going to keep working so I don't sit on the couch. That's a valid answer, honestly. But also, what other things are there in life that you might want to do and might want to try that will keep you off of the couch, but it doesn't have to be work in the traditional sense?
Yeah. And really, it's about a different way of looking at life. And I often, when people are kind of debating this, I'll recommend the book, The Purpose Code. And we did an episode with Dr. Grummett on this. He's a hospice doc, but also does a lot of work in finance. And he's asked a lot of people about like what matters and what's the purpose. And the bottom line is, this is the whole book is summed up, is if you chase the capital P purpose, that big, hairy, audacious goal, and you get it, you're never happy. If, on the other hand, you're embracing what he calls the lowercase p purpose, which is that journey, not the destination, you can be happy. This book is one of those that's challenged my mindset, and I still have some issues with it because I still like goals. I'm a goal-driven person. Now, can I embrace more about the process and enjoying the day-to-day and not necessarily be about the end goal? And I'm working on it. Like, I don't think I'll ever get out of my brain, I want to get the gold star. I want to hit the goals, all that. But can I do it in a way that reflects the life I want to live where I can just be happy living my life? And my wife and I had this discussion. So she was in the academic path, and the academic path, you go on the tenure track position and you become an assistant professor, an associate and professor. And then when you hit that, you get tenure and you get to like forever kind of pontificate about whatever your topic is. And you get a retirement goal, and you can, now, they've actually got pensions. It's a very standard place. You got to go up the ladder. It's a way, you do 6 years here. It's a very structured process. She went and got a different job at a nonprofit. She enjoys it, and she doesn't have to go up the ladder. She's not forced to keep moving up and doing X amount of publications and presentations. And she's like, well, what do I do? And I'm like, you just enjoy it. And she came back to me like a couple of days later. She's like, is that okay? And I'm like, who's going to say no? Like, it's possible to just enjoy your life and not be on that hamster wheel, that rat race, and just keep wanting to move up.
Yeah, that's true. I also find it funny that you, in that same conversation there, you go, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that. But then you're telling your wife it's okay to enjoy that.
I'm honest. I mean, everybody has their limitations.
No, it's just funny to me because it is true. And I like the purpose code for that. The little P, I think there is such an importance of you do need to enjoy your life every day. And if you're not, things are going to be miserable. People around you are going to be miserable. And figuring out how you can get there can be really difficult and really hard, and takes a lot of self-reflection to do that. But it is so incredibly important. And that's kind of what FILE is about. How can you enjoy your life and enjoy that little P purpose now? versus waiting to the end, because the reality is you might not get to retirement. If you spend your entire life waiting for retirement to do things, you might not make it there. And you might not, if you make it there, you also might not have good health. If you push everything off until later, there is a risk that you don't actually get to do some of those things you enjoy.
Yeah. And you'll see, if you've picked up my book, The Child-Free Guide to Life and Money, all of this is integrated in here. And the first half of the book is about figuring out what life you want to live. And the second half is about finances. Mm-hmm. It's intentionally that way, is figuring out the life first. And we talk about it as simplifying your finances so your life could be amazing. That's part of that file. Child-free folks are not following the standard script. The standard script is you go to school, you get married, you have kids, work 25 years, pass the money to the next generation, and you die. It's just kind of how it works. We're following a different path. And because we're following a different path, we can do different things. We can go back to school and, be a librarian if that's what we want. I don't know why a lot of our clients want to be librarians, but they do. Or,
awesome that would be.
I mean,
that sounds lovely.
I don't know. Right now in this political world, I'm not sure I want to be a librarian, but, it's a different life. And what happens is, people will look at it and go, oh, well, I don't have to keep struggling at what I'm doing. I can maybe quit my job, maybe go in a different direction, maybe reskill, and actually enjoy my life. And at the same time, it technically will set you back for retirement because you're not saving as much towards retirement. Your numbers are different, whatever. But if retirement is not your goal, that's okay. Because remember, for most child-free folks, we don't have a goal of passing on a whole lot of money to the next generation. So if you don't have a goal of passing money down to the next generation, there's a point where you're earning money that is not going to help you and does not go to your goals. There's a point where you can actually have too much money, which really just blows people's brains sometimes. But this is the truth. So instead, what if we invest that money in you? And that investment may literally be an investment going back to school or whatever else it is. Or it may just be, you know what? Quit that job making 6 figures and go take the librarian job making half of that, but be happy with your life.
Those can be hard decisions to make too. And people, I think, will cling so deeply to that one specific job. And after a bit of time, they might also go, oh, I don't know that I actually wanted that. But it's hard because we're taught that we have to go for very specific goals. You have to earn a certain amount. You have to hit a certain point. And to give that up and say, that's not what I want actually, can be really, really tricky. And we see that all the time with clients who have been living that life and kind of been on that hamster wheel and keep going, and then get to a point where when they take a break, they go, oh, this isn't what I thought I wanted. And now I'm realizing that.
Yeah. And part of this is just the way we're built and trained. I had a conversation. I was at a conference and I sat down and this guy sat down next to me and he tried to sell me something and I wasn't buying it, but it was obvious he really did not have this product and this sales and his passion. So I spent the next 2.5 hours or so digging into his life. Now, Bree may laugh at that because she knows that's kind of just what I do.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
My file dream is, okay, I'm on the boat. People come spend a day with me. I get to dig around and help them get to their goals and then they go away, which sounds kind of harsh, but I'm like, that's about how much I like people, like a little bit and then go away. But I started digging in and it was interesting because what I found as I started digging in, it was a lot of the things he was doing is because that was what was expected of him. It is what his spouse expected of him. It is what his dad did. He was just repeating patterns. And we do that. We go to school. We got this degree. I've got to use it. No, you don't. You can pick something else, especially if you're unhappy. But what happens is we're so trained that this is what you have to do. And there's no way I could make a change at a younger age. I was doing a webinar for financial folks and I was doing case studies. And I was talking about somebody who in their mid-20s was like, yep, I'm going to go back and figure out what I want to do. And they kind of burnt out. And the host looked at me and he goes, I cannot understand a 20-year-old being burnt out of their job. And I was like, okay, boomer. I didn't actually say that, but that was kind of, I mean, I'm Gen X. I was raised that way. You just suck it up. You deal with it. But I don't think we have to. if you're going to embrace file, you can question, why am I doing what I'm doing? And does this bring me joy? It's Marie Kondoing your life. Get rid of the things that don't bring you joy and do more of the things that do. But it challenges everything you are taught.
Hey, Child Free Wealth listeners, it's Bree. If you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, be sure to get on it, where each week we send out information regarding what's going on in the world of child-free life and finances. You can sign up by finding the link in our description. Yeah, it can be. Even just making the decision of, wanting to be in a different location too can be really hard. Be transparent. And right now, my wife and I are in a season of change and we don't really know where we're going to be living. And we've been talking about going to some different places. And it was really started as a vacation discussion. And then she goes, why don't we just go stay there for a few weeks or a month and live there for a while? Now I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. And she goes, you can work from anywhere. We might as well. I can fly out of anywhere. It really doesn't matter. Why not? Let's do it. And that's an option. And it can be, sometimes you just need an extra push to do that and have somebody try that, because there are more options available to you than you think once you hit a certain point, but we can be our own self-limiters.
Yeah. And I think the core question is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Where do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? Which sounds like a kind of throwaway question, but that is actually the hardest question. Bree's talking about changing her life. Great. If you can do that and you go, I don't like that. Well, then you go change it again.
Exactly.
Like, this is not a permanent answer, but you can shift and say, hey, retirement's not my goal, or I'm not going to wait until retirement. The other one we get is people go, well, I'm going to retire when I hit 70, 65, 62, pick an age. They have this age in their mind. And I go, why? Well, because that's when you're supposed to retire. I'm like, okay, that is an answer. That is, age is probably the least important part of this equation. What do you want your retirement to look like? So I was talking to somebody and they're a therapist for a living. And I'm like, what would happen if you cut back from seeing clients 4 days a week to 2? They're like, well, my income would go down. I said, that's fine. You probably wouldn't be able to save towards retirement, but you can still live on that. She goes, well, you're right. I said, what else would happen? She goes, well, I'd be able to travel more. I'd be able to get out with my dog. Would you be happier? She goes, absolutely. I'm like, so why don't we do that? And she was like, well, I don't know. And that's what we see a lot with clients. Like when we ask these questions on file versus fire, like, why are you doing what you're doing? We get like 3 questions in, and then they'll usually go, I don't know. And all of a sudden it becomes one of those like, well, I could do whatever I want then. And it's interesting. I was talking with somebody. It was actually Andy and Libby. I did their meeting, and afterwards, Libby was talking about, hey, I referred somebody to you, but they're not ready to sign up or work with you yet. So they went to work with another financial planner. And I was like, why? And Libby's like, I think it's because they're not ready to change. And they're not really happy with the planner they got to, but they're not ready for change. And I'm like, that's fair. We've tracked it. People either sign up with us in the first week or 2 after we meet with them, maybe the first month, or we'll see them back in a year, because you have to be ready for change. And this file versus fire is the core debate. Like, could you do something different with your life and be happy now rather than just taking the beating for the next 20 years? And people are like, well, but I was told I always have to take the beating. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah, you don't have to, but there also is a huge part about that being ready for change, because I've seen that with clients too. And I'll ask during checkup meetings sometimes, are you ready to make a change? And sometimes they're like, not really. So it's important to know, even in follow-up, sometimes they'll say, I'm not necessarily ready to make a change. And you need to know that. You need to be honest with yourself of whether or not you're ready to make a change, because there is something to be said for jumping at something too soon, and also something to be said for sticking your feet in the mud and just standing there waiting and hoping somebody else makes that change for you without actually committing to going ahead and making that change and being willing to take coaching on that.
Yeah, and it's hard to say, but it's absolutely true that some of my clients, the best thing that ever happened to them was they got laid off. They're like, now what do I do? I'm like, do you really want to go back to work? They're like, no, I want to do X. Well, then let's do that. And they're like, but I can't. And I'm like, yes, you can. We'll work through the finances and all that. And it kind of gives them that kick in the butt. And, if you're sitting here kind of debating it, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a minute and write down what matters to you in life. What brings you joy? What are the things you want to do more of? And what you're going to find in very few cases, it's like, I want to do more of the work I'm doing right now. I don't know that I've ever had somebody say, I want more of what I'm doing. I have had some people say, I truly enjoy my job. I want to keep doing it. Great. Then if it's not for the money, we can donate the money to different things. But often that list is going to be a bunch of things you're not doing because of your current financial plan, your job, other things. So this is where we have a debate. If you love your job, but you want to travel more, we've had folks go to their boss and say, hey, I want to do a 80% schedule. I'm going to work 20% less, get paid 20% less, but I'm going to travel. I have folks doing 3 weeks of work, 1 week off, then 3 weeks of work, so they have travel. Whatever it is, but how do we optimize for more of what you care about? Now, what's going to happen is your brain's going to start going, yeah, but my numbers won't let me. Okay, work with a financial planner. This is where we can help you. The bonus of working with a financial planner is we look at your numbers unemotionally. We can show you it. We meet with the clients on a monthly basis, and it usually takes about 6 months for them to believe us on the numbers. I'm just telling you, it takes a while. But don't let that get in your way right this second. Just dream. Just think about what you would do. Then the question becomes, how do I make my finances get there? And let's be real. If you're barely making ends meet, you're living rent and ramen, you're not ready for this conversation. You're not talking about fire or fire. But once you're past that, once you have some money set aside, once you're out of debt, you get to choose which life you want to live. And if you choose to keep doing the life you're in, you are choosing that.
Yes. And that's such an important distinction is there comes a point when you're choosing the miserable life, and that can be hard to hear. It can suck to hear, frankly. There is a need to have that called out and then decide whether or not you're going to take and move forward from that and decide something else for your life and make it better, or if you're going to continue to sit in that.
Yes. And then you need to make sure your plan matches you, not somebody else. And it's interesting. When I dive into this file stuff with folks, one of the barriers is they're worried what other people are going to think. And I'm like, they get no vote in your life. Just because they're miserable does not mean you have to be miserable. Okay, we all have some family members that do that, okay? You know what I'm talking about. That's misery loves company. You can be happy with your life. You made different choices. And people are like, well, but they're suffering. I'm like, you're right. You can help them if you'd like. But just because they're suffering doesn't mean you have to. And this is where the guilt stuff lays in and all the other fun stuff. But if you're still choosing to kind of go to a job you don't enjoy, do a plan you don't enjoy, follow a plan that does not match you, then I just want you to be conscious about that choice. I'm okay if you decide, hey, I'm going to follow this, even though I know it's not right for me. Fine. Give it a year. You'll come back. You might not be ready, but have that debate. But what then happens is people go, well, but my dad told me I need to, or other family member or friend or whatever else it is. And I'm like, they're not living your life. They're following the standard script. They're going to retire. They're going to do that fun stuff. They're passing my next generation. You're not. And I think as I start working with clients on this, they start realizing a lot of the voices in their head are not their own. They're people telling them what they should do. Things they've seen on the internet, their general rules, whatever. And then there's that moment well, don't those people know what they're talking about? And I'm like, they do for people living a different life, not for you. It's interesting. I have clients who'll reach out or prospects, and we're going through kind of what we call the child free wealth checkup. And I'll ask them, do they want to retire? When do they want to retire? When do they want to cut back? What do they want to do? Fire, whatever it is. And then they'll tell me, I had somebody, recently was like, well, what's your next goal? And they're like, I guess retirement at 65. And I'm like, why 65? They're like, because that's when you retire. I'm like, hold up. Like, that is when you might be able to retire. But your age is actually one of the least important things in your retirement plan. The only thing it's useful for is to give you kind of an idea of like how many years you have left to plan for. But you don't have to wait until 59 and a half, 65, 70, whatever magic number to retire. Now, I will say some folks that are on pensions, they may have to put a certain amount of time in, but there's usually ways around that too. Bree, have you seen this?
Absolutely. The amount of people who worry about not having enough in a taxable brokerage because they want to retire before 59 and a half and just absolutely feel like they need to put every single penny in there. And then you have a conversation with them and they're like, well, there are other options here. And they go, oh, I never knew that.
Yeah. So let's talk through some of this. The first thing people think about is like, hey, I can't get access to my retirement account until 59 and a half. I'm going to tell you right now, that is not true. There are ways. They go from, hey, I just pay a penalty and, pay the 10% and take my money out, to some very kind of complex tax math to get there. But there are ways. And I will tell you, it is one of those areas that you probably need to work with a professional. Like you can make mistakes on how to get the money out. I have some folks trying to I'm going to take out my 401k to, redo my house. And I'm just going to pay the penalty. I go, okay, fine. You're going to pay 10% of that money, but you're also going to be paying income tax at this level based on where and you show them all the math and I'm like, you're going to have to take out almost double to cover it. And they're like, oh, never mind. I'm not going to do that. It's not just the penalties, but it is something where you do need to work with a professional because the rules change. Even what, how we look at it, the systems, Social Security just changed how much you get out, depending on if you have a pension or not. These things change regularly and you need a plan.
Yeah. And being able to have somebody who's doing it all the time and going through it can be super helpful because I think many of these options that we tell people, they are just totally unaware of them and they don't think about, the tax penalties that are going to occur. And it's not that they're doing anything wrong. Even people that we are talking to that are super into personal finance can miss these things because it's not something that's often talked about. You just hear age 59 and a half all the time. And it's, as with anything in finance, it feels like yes, and there are other things that need to be considered that aren't as well known.
Yeah. And if you're just putting your money in your taxable account instead of a tax deferred or tax, advantaged account like a traditional or a Roth IRA, 401k, whatever else it may be, you do have better access, but you're paying more taxes. This is kind of like one of those games. If I really just want to get the money, I could pay the 10% and get out. Worst case, I can lose 10%. And it's very rare that I'm going to say to do that, but just go with me. Let's start with that example. I just need money for a huge medical issue coming up. I need 50 grand for a surgery that's not covered by my insurance. It's life or death. What do? We can take money out of your 401k. It's a one-time hit. Take the 10%. You pay the taxes if it's a traditional. You just pay the penalty in that case. Notice I didn't say if you want to remodel your kitchen, you do that. No, that's an emergency, a one-off, something happened. That 10% penalty is there to kind of help you keep your money in, but it's not the worst thing in the world if you had to take it out for an emergency.
Yeah, there's things that sometimes you need to do what you need to do. That's one option. Second option is if you retire at age 55 and you have a 401k or 403b, something like that, you can start taking money out at age 55. I think so many times there's been an influx of people online sharing companies in which you can roll over your 401k, potentially to an IRA. Have you seen those, Jay?
Yep. I know where you're going.
Yes. And while I think the intention can be helpful, it can also create problems for you down the line. Because if you want to go ahead and retire and you've had all these 401ks over the years that you've put into rollover IRAs, suddenly your money's there. If you would have left them in a 401k, or you would have moved them all, if you're like, hey, I absolutely hate having multiple 401ks, if you would have moved them to your current employer, retired from there at the age 55, then you could have taken money out and it wouldn't have been an issue. And so, while I think the move to make sure you know where all your accounts are can be helpful, it's kind of grinding my gears a little bit that how much this particular service, there's a couple of them, has been promoted recently.
Well, and let's be real. If you're 32 and you're like, should I roll it into my IRA? You're not going to be talking about the rule of 55. Like, I'm less worried about it. It's the ones that like, all right, I've seen this. Like, I'm going to retire or quit or whatever it is. And I'm 55. And the day after they do their rollover, you now go back to that 59 and a half. It's you either are in or out. Now, if you have the IRA, you may, depending on the employer, be able to roll your IRA into your 401k, then take it out when you retire at 55. So like there's ways. Now, by the way, we're in the land where this is all, I'm going to keep saying, you need professional help. Like even as a CFP, some of these moves, I only do after I talk to their CPA. Like, we'll get our heads together and go, this makes sense. Now, the 55 fits, but let's say I'm younger than that. I'm going to retire at 45. Now we go, all right, how do I get access to my money? Now, one of the things that could happen, I'm not saying you want it to happen, you could be disabled. Interestingly enough, being disabled gets you around that penalty. Now, by the way, it's not like disabled for a week, like it's long term, but it is a way to get access to your money. There's certain qualifying life events that allow you to get at it. I think the hard part is I had somebody who's not doing well medically, and she's like putting it off because like, well, I can't access my money, my 401k. I'm like, you go on disability, we're good. Like, no problem. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm not saying like fake a disability. That's not what we're talking about. Like that is a way to get access. Now, another fun one on that one, if I can make disability fun, is if you go on Social Security disability, let's say you're 45, you're disabled, you go on Social Security disability, after 2 years, you actually get access to Medicare a whole lot earlier than the 65 standard. You can get access to your 401k and get good health insurance for cheap. Like these are the types of things people don't think about that we think about, but like it's what you're seeing is it's very situational.
It is, absolutely. Another one is 45, the series of substantially equal periodic payments, SEPP. So taking a consistent amount out every year until you hit age 59 and a half or 5 years, whichever is longer. That's an option for you as well.
Yeah, so this one's a weird one. And by the way, like this one takes some weird math games. Now, the way it works is you have to take exactly the same amount out each year for this time period. And the downside there is you're like, oh, well, I need 50 grand this year. That's going to take care of this issue, but I'm only going to need 20 grand next year. You got to do the 50 for every time or whatever that math is. And the hard part there is you may end up getting like forced to take out more money than you need. And this is another one where I'm going to have some math equations on if you really need 50 grand this year and you think you're going to need 20 grand every year after that, we may take the penalty on 30K this year and then take a regular payment after. Now, it is one of those that like, there's not a like perfect answer because I don't know what your expenses are going to be for the next 7 years or whatever else it is, but we have to kind of thread the needle a little bit. Like we think it'll be about this much. We're going to take that amount out no matter what. If we have extra, we can put in the taxable brokerage or savings. We can do whatever. But that doesn't have an age and does not require you to be disabled or anything like weird to happen to you. So let me talk about a different way. Another way to get access is if you have Roth IRAs, you can take out your contributions. Now, there's some quirky stuff here. You have to have had a Roth account for 5 years, and the money's got to be there 5 years before you start having some problems with the penalties. It's just 2 5-year rules, which really gets kind of confusing, but go with me. But you can start taking out the contributions, not the growth. There's no penalty. And because it's Roth and your contributions, there's actually no tax due. So this is one of those things like, I don't like taking money out of Roth because it's going to grow tax-free forever. But if I'm in a high income year and I need some extra money, I don't want to pay the extra income tax. It's a one-off. Maybe it's a 2-year thing. Maybe I'm taking a sabbatical. It's a good solution. Now, if you have like a Roth 401k, most likely what's going to happen is you're going to have to roll that into a Roth IRA, which means you're going to have to leave your employer to do that, because very, very few, if any, 401k plans allow in-plan distributions to roll that out. So that there's some kind of quirks there, but it is an option.
And being able to take that when you're doing this, sometimes it means you're doing a combination of these things depending on the age you're retiring. Like you said earlier, taking a penalty on $30,000 and then doing the substantially equal periodic payments for another 20. And it's kind of complex and it takes some time, and sitting down and figuring it all out. You need to have help with it because you don't want to take and start yourself on a path where you didn't intend to be and have adverse tax consequences because of it.
Yeah. And I mean, none of this is kind of like the standard plan. And I don't expect you to be like, oh, that one fits me perfectly. What I'm really trying to get you to take away from this is there are ways. So let's talk about some other weird ways to get access to money. I have seen this one. If I have an inherited IRA, that one doesn't have the 59.5 number with it. So I may be able to take the money from the inherited IRA. Just if it's traditional, I'm going to get taxed as income, but there's no penalty. Now, inherited IRAs are really weird. There's a really weird chart on like how many years do you have to take it out? Is it 10 years? Is it the requirements? Really tough. And there's like a chart that I have to look at and like cross my eyes a couple times. Like it is one of those like IRS changed the rules a couple times over the past year or two, and it takes a minute. But if you're like, I just want to live off that for my time, awesome. Now, I'm not saying like to off a family member to get an inherited IRA, but it is a bucket of money you can get access to.
But if you're desperate enough, maybe.
Hey!
No.
Bree said that on her own. That is her comment, not meant to, no. She's over here killing off her family members. Oh, boy.
I love them too much.
This is the joke. Like, don't get too high of a life insurance policy, because then your spouse is like, there's a price. There is a price where, like, you have enough insurance, I might.
Yeah. And watching a true crime recently, I feel like that happens a lot. But going through knowing these different things, knowing how to take money out of them can be super helpful for people. And it's okay if you don't know all of them. It's okay if you know one or two, but being able to sit down, talk through it, and just form a plan is really what gets you to retirement. And instead of getting stuck on those specific ages, because those ages, like you said earlier, are just ages. They're not gospel of when you can go and start living your life and doing things.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you're starting to see is it's very easy to save money for retirement. Put money away, put in the accounts, I invest it. It might not be perfect, but it's doing its thing. That you can do mindlessly. How do you take the money out at the right time with the right taxes, with the right situation? Completely different answer. And it takes like rewiring your brain. Now, I want to go to one of the ones of how to access your 401k that I don't really like, but let me talk about it. And that's taking a 401k loan. This is an interesting one because what you'll see is people go, well, you're borrowing money from yourself. It is technically true. You're borrowing from your 401k. But the caveat here is if you lose your job, you get fired, you quit, that loan is immediately due. Usually it's like 60 days. You have to like put all of it back. Well, if you don't have that, you're getting forced to take a distribution. You're paying the 10% penalty. You're paying the taxes, all of that day. And as much as I'd love to say, hey, your employer, I don't have to worry about my job, blah, blah. We've learned job security is only as good as like how good you are. And you can trust your company to an extent, but if the market goes down, they lose a big customer, somebody changes policies, whatever, you're out. And all of a sudden that 401k loan is 100% due. The other challenge with a 401k loan is you can pay payments over time. That works. You can't actually pay extra towards it unless you're going to pay the whole thing off. So like you're in a rough place. I don't have a problem with taking a 401k loan for an emergency that go back to that medical expenses and I can pay it off in a certain period of time. Fine. Once again, 401k loans for your kitchen remodel, no.
Hey, Child Free Wealth listeners, it's Bree. If you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, be sure to get on it, where each week we send out information regarding what's going on in the world of child-free life and finances. You can sign up by finding the link in our description.
You're really anti-kitchen remodel here recently.
Okay, so I am, because I had a couple people on this one, whether it's kitchen remodel or bathroom remodel or whatever. And I think we have this thing between the kind of must, shoulds, and coulds. They're like, I must redo my kitchen. No, you don't. Does it work? Do the appliances work? Like, if you don't have to do it, then you save up money and you do it. You don't rob your retirement funds. You don't pay extra taxes. You don't do these things. Now, I might hate my kitchen. So I'm thinking back to the one we had in Connecticut. When we first moved in, this is a 1970s house, it had carpet in the kitchen, which should just not be legal. Like, it should just not be legal. It's just yellow appliances. My wife actually loved the yellow appliances, but this was 1970s fashion. And I ripped up the carpet. The flooring underneath was terrible. Like, we need to do stuff. It sat that way for a while because we didn't have extra cash hanging around to do it. I did a little project here and there, run to Lowe's, grab this, do that. It's doable, but it wasn't an emergency. And I think when we're talking about accessing money that is set aside for your future, I'm going to get on my high horse and start yelling at people and saying, like, don't do that, because you're stealing for this kitchen that the house you're going to sell like 6 years later or even 2 months later, depending on what it is. And you've now stolen from the rest of your future. Sorry, not the topic for today, but it kind of is. Like, we're talking about how do you access your retirement funds when you need it. We're not talking about, hey, I want to take a great vacation and I'm going to take out a 401k loan.
Yeah. For the 401k loans. The other stuff, if you're retiring and you want to get your money out earlier, take that vacation, do that kitchen remodel.
But that's part of a plan.
Exactly.
This is the whole point. Like, we need to let that money grow until we have a plan of how we're going to use it, how it's going to last, what we're going to do with it, how we're going to invest it. Like, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to taking money out in that deaccumulation phase.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's important to know those things. We did an episode, I don't know if it's going to be before or after this, but talking about why you need to have an emergency fund, because taking out a 401k loan for an emergency is not our first step that we want to go to. If it has to happen, sure, but it's not step number one. That is not your emergency account, because I think, as you've all now heard, there are many ways to get money out, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be super easy and it's going to be the best option for you in the long run.
Yeah. And if you're going to retire early or you're going to cut back on work, change jobs, whatever, I'm going to need some extra money. Really, the point of this episode is you should be looking at it saying, all right, I need to start working on a plan probably 6 or 12 months before then, because that's when we're going to start making shifts. We're going to start looking at, okay, what money do we access? When do we do this? I like kind of a 12-month run, because then I can adjust over calendar years. There's some fun things you can do there. Taxes. Like, it's not, hey, I'm quitting my job tomorrow and I need money out of my retirement fund. You just limited your options considerably. It is one that you need to plan on. Besides the fact that I'm going to then go argue with you about, well, what do you want to retire to? What is your life going to look like? What is, people are like, I hate my job. I'm retiring tomorrow. I'm like, okay, but we should put some thoughts behind this.
Yeah. What do you want to do next? How do you want to spend your time? Not just, I hate it so much, I'm done.
Yeah. And I'll actually say to clients, we'll do all their numbers. And I'm like, yes, you can cut back on work. You can file, you could retire, you can do whatever. And then I will add in that same meeting, I don't mean tomorrow. I mean with a plan that we're going to execute. And they'll kind of laugh at me, but I'm like, you know what I'm talking about. Because you get to a point, you're like, I want to just tell my boss what to do with his job. Take it and shove it. Well, no. Hold up. We need to double check things. Also, right now, I've had quite a few folks where they're like, hey, I'm going to cut back on work. I want to retire. Where we've been able to negotiate with their employer a severance, a reduction in force, a layoff. Those are awesome. They take a few months to get kind of the structure, work it through. You kind of put the bug in your ear of your boss going, hey, I know you're trying to cut staff. I'm willing to volunteer to do that. There are ways you can do that and make it work. I think it just takes some planning.
Yeah. If you can get a early retirement or a severance or a layoff, anything like that, those can be really nice and a really good little boost on the way out when you're already looking to leave.
Yep. And one more while we're talking about getting access to your money and letting that hold you back and age holding you back. I think the other one I always have to talk about is you don't have to wait to retire because of health insurance. There are options. An ACA plan for a couple, the math I use is it costs you about $25,000 across the year if you have to go all the out-of-pocket costs. For a soloist, it's like $13,000, $14,000. It's not exactly half. But we're not talking about enough money to say, I'm never going to retire because of healthcare. I get it. You got good health benefits at the company. I did this for somebody else. They were like, I've got this great plan. It was a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. I like it. I like my doctors. I'm going to kind of stay employed. I went on the marketplace for their state. The same exact plan was available. And because they weren't going to be employed, their income was going to go down considerably. They actually were going to get a stipend for it. And it worked out to very, very close to the same amount they were paying at their employer. I'm like, so why are you still doing this job? Well, it was for the healthcare. I'm like, not anymore. It isn't. And I think that's our self-limiting beliefs. Now, I will say some folks, when they're throwing those out, it's because they're actually not ready to retire. It's kind of like, they're like, oh, I'll retire in 5 years. I'm like, why? You can do it now. Once I show them they can do it now, their head explodes. They're like, I didn't mean I want to do it right now. I'm like, that's fine. You can choose to keep working. It is on you. And they're like, I'm just going to keep struggling. So if you haven't caught our episodes with Andy and Libby, that was their case. They're like, I got to work another 5 years. I said to them, nah, you're going to retire the next year and, live remote. And that's what they did. And they're very happy. But it took them 6 months to get that, kind of in their mindset and work through it. And that's normal.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a rating or review. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Please let us know your thoughts wherever comments are available or email us at media@childfreewealth.com. To stay up to date, find and follow Child Free Wealth on social media. If you're interested in working with us, learn more by visiting our website, childfreewealth.com. We'll see you next time.